I can still clearly recall the way she appeared to simply float across the floor. It was insane. Even now it remains with me. This is the question, and you weren't into her. Who doesn't like Nicole? That is untrue. That is untrue. You must therefore have context. Where was your bar for humanity? I asked. After years of silence, Keith Urban, 57, has finally spoken up. Together with Nicole Kidman, the man who was previously regarded as the embodiment of enduring love has formally disclosed the true cause of their idyllic marriage's dissolution. Keith revealed what he had kept hidden from even his closest friends and family for almost 20 years after they were married, and he eventually came clean about the facts, which hurt more than any gossip. Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban, one of Hollywood's most famous couples, have split up after over 2 decades of marriage. We learned today. Nobody anticipated how their lives would be irrevocably altered when Keith and Nicole first met at a Los Angeles event celebrating Australians. The worlds of the two artists were very different. Keith was an emerging country star, and Nicole had recently come out of a turbulent marriage. They seemed to understand each other's loneliness, and their bond was organic. It all started with music and trust at their intimate wedding in Sydney, which took place only a year later. Instead than focusing on celebrity, the media characterized it as a wedding of the heart. The couple decided to live a quiet life, avoiding attention, and focused all of their energy on establishing a solid foundation for their family. Keith made me believe in peace. I thought I would never have that again, Nicole once said in an interview around this time. However, just a few months after the wedding, Keith faced the biggest challenge of his life. After years of struggling with his previous addiction, he had to go to a treatment center. Nicole decided to stay instead of leaving, delaying all of her work schedule to accompany him during the trying time. Keith acknowledged, "I don't know if I could have gotten through it if it weren't for her at that time." The months spent in the rehab facility turned into a turning point that fundamentally altered his way of life and how he saw himself. Following the trying time, they relocated to Nashville to begin a new life, and the birth of 2 daughters in quick succession brought a unique harmony between celebrity and normal life. Their small family gained a positive reputation in the art world. During this time, Keith's career was at its height with a string of commercially hit songs, while Nicole solidified her place in Hollywood. Keith concentrated on music, and Nicole was reborn in her roles. They constantly showed up together at events, their eyes and grins radiating a strong bond. When Keith released the song, The Fighter, he openly told the media, "I wrote this song for the person who didn't leave me when things were at their worst." They walked the red carpet together, sharing the artist's triumphs and setbacks. For the audience, this was a beautiful story where love and faith triumphed over the past and doubts. The song turned into a representation of their bond, a song about tenacity, or how love can save lives. At about the same time, Nicole said in a television interview, "We understand each other better than anyone, because we have been through the deep end together." They were viewed by the public as the ideal couple. An international movie star and a well-known country singer, united by integrity and respect, are portrayed in many newspapers as examples of mature love. Through their successes, failures, and support of one another through difficult times, they gave fans hope that marriages in the entertainment business could still endure. And as the signs become more obvious, the relationship that once saved a man from the abyss is about to face its biggest test: the silent cracks behind the glory. Although everything on the outside seems perfect on the inside, Keith and Nicole start to show unmistakable distances. That seemingly eternal peace was just the calm before the storm. With Nicole spending most of her time on foreign film sets and Keith traveling from tour to tour, they're entering different phases of their lives and careers after more than 10 years together. Their infrequent meetings are insufficient to overcome their increasing distance from one another. Nicole also falls into the cycle of the film industry, which alternates between large projects and months-long promotional campaigns. When they both reached the pinnacle of their careers, they drifted apart. Keith acknowledges in interviews that his hectic schedule leaves him feeling exhausted and disconnected from real life. Long nights on the road and endless tours mean he rarely returns home. According to those close to them, during this time they were traveling in parallel and no longer meeting in the middle. Nicole continued to support Keith's music, but their conversations grew increasingly brief and focused primarily on work and kids. Keith once admitted in a press conference that he felt lost among his loved ones, a statement that garnered a lot of attention. The most obvious turning point came in 2025 when Keith started to establish his own home in Nashville, a move that was interpreted as a sign of a serious rift. Nicole continued to share family photos and looked stunning at events, but their interactions with Keith gradually faded from the media. Both of them remained silent, neither confirming nor denying anything, but all indications pointed to a change in their relationship. Nicole was totally focused on her new film while Keith was on a national tour, and she often traveled between continents while Keith slept on the tour bus. They continued to communicate and be courteous, but their emotional bond had deteriorated. One friend once said that the distance was emotional rather than geographical. Work-related stress caused Keith to become more reclusive. In a discussion about the artist's life, he stated that the spotlight is not enough to fill the personal void. Nicole recognized that, but the gap between them was now too great to be able to bridge as before, expressing the mood of someone weary of attempting to balance fame and private life. The differences in personality and lifestyle also became more apparent. Nicole lived in the world of the movie set, where everything was happening all the time, while Keith preferred quiet places and private concerts. The things that had once drawn them together now became obstacles, and their occasional brief meetings lasted only a few days before each went on with their work. According to those close to them, Keith started talking more and stopped bringing up family issues during interviews, and when he was asked about Nicole, he only gave a brief response and shifted the conversation to music, which became a clue that something was going on. Nicole, on the other hand, kept up a professional front, concentrating only on her job and kids. Even though they were still a family and continued to show up together for their children's special occasions, the distance slowly cooled their relationship. They stopped sharing the small things they used to, and Keith started spending more time in the studio while Nicole focused on new projects. After months of tense silence, the decision to separate between Keith and Nicole was made as an inevitable step. The two paths parted quietly, marking the end of a golden age and the beginning of a new chapter in their lives, filled with difficult decisions and separate paths, where their once strong love was now only a memory of the past. In order to find balance, Keith left their Nashville shared house in the summer of 2025, and Nicole continued to live a stable life with her two daughters, agreeing to keep things private to prevent outside interference. On September 30, 2025, divorce papers were filed in Tennessee. The petition cited irreconcilable differences as the reason, and according to court records, the parties had already agreed that Nicole would be the primary caregiver for the two children, and Keith would have regular visitation time. The decision was made swiftly, reflecting both parties' wishes for a cordial split. Financially, everything was managed in accordance with a 2006 contract. Neither party sought alimony. Keith continued to work and assume the responsibilities of a father. Nicole provided a stable life for her two children, but they ended a nearly two-decade relationship. The new film project signaled a new phase in which Nicole put her career and children above all else, and set became a place to help her regain her mental equilibrium. Nicole returned to the set a few weeks after the court approved the divorce terms, looking professional and focused on work as a way to maintain a normal life. Although those around her acknowledged her fortitude and composure, Keith carried on with a prearranged High and Alive tour, honoring his pledge to his fans by not canceling any performances. Keith was more reserved on stage, concentrating solely on music, and some of the new songs he sang reflected his shifting feelings following the breakup of his marriage. In their personal lives, the two continued to be in sync with regard to their children, with Nicole taking care of them and Keith making time to be present on special occasions like birthdays or school functions. The two daughters were still assured of a stable life unaffected by changes in the family, and music became a means for him to express his feelings without explanation. Every plan was executed in a systematic way that demonstrated both parties' respect and accountability. The way they approached reality differed, and Nicole decided to focus on the future while re-establishing her reputation and independent life. She attended important events with her usual poise and confidence. Everyone heals in their own way, and Nicole became a visual representation of post-divorce strength. Those close to her describe her as emotionally in control and not allowing the past to control her. Keith opted to remain silent and instead spent time writing, recording, and spending more time in the studio than before. In contrast, Keith focused his energies on music, working with new producers to prepare an album with the theme heartbreak and redemption. She made it clear that ending a relationship did not mean loss, but rather a transition to greater maturity, and her subsequent interviews always focused on work, family, and enduring values, avoiding any debate or speculation. The calmness in both of their actions indicates that they have chosen a clear direction, and those who have worked with him say it will be the most personal project of his career, despite the fact that details have not been disclosed. Returning to the studio after a period of turmoil is perceived as Keith's way of finding balance. Although they are no longer together, Nicole and Keith continue to exist in parallel in the same space, each pursuing their passion while their separate journeys continue to move forward. Nicole finds herself through work and family, and Keith finds his emotions through music. The unfinished thoughts in Keith's heart, which he discussed shortly after silence broke in October 2025 in a TV interview about his musical journey, are one aspect of the new plans that hasn't been fully closed. Keith told the audience some unexpected things, candidly discussing the feeling of unbalance between stage and roof, and acknowledging that he couldn't keep everything as he wanted. His voice was calm and decisive, but there was a hint of exhaustion in it. Keith said that he had spent too much time on work, leaving him with no energy for other important things. He described his time on the runway as long days in solitude, even though there were always people around. This statement is thought to be the first time he explicitly mentioned the reason for the end of the marriage. In the interview, Keith stressed, "I used to think that if you love enough, everything will be fine." This admission was interpreted as a clear acknowledgement of the reason he and Nicole gradually grew away. His profound self-awareness was evident in the comment, which became the main focus. But love alone cannot sustain a relationship if you are no longer truly present in it. Keith's words were succinct and straightforward, but they were replete with regret. "I miss my family every day," he said when asked about the period following the divorce. After months of silence, he did not try to avoid the past or to justify it. He acknowledged that he had allowed music to take over his life and that he had once believed that success could bring his family closer together, but in the end he realized that it only caused more distance. The audience understood that behind the halo, Keith was going through the most trying time in his personal life when he talked about waking up in the middle of a tour feeling empty, despite having just finished a successful show. Later, in another interview, he acknowledged that he had gone through a period when he nearly lost everything. Recalling the period when he had to change, reduce his work hours, and limit his social life, Keith explained that the divorce was the result of a string of errors that accrued while both were preoccupied with their own agendas and had forgotten the initial bond. In response to the question of whether he regretted it, Keith said succinctly, "I regret not spending more time." He did not go into further detail, but his eyes and voice conveyed the sincerity of his feelings to the audience, and Nicole did not directly address Keith's statement. Those who have worked with Keith say he has become quieter and less talkative after the divorce. She said in a private interview with the fashion magazine that sometimes the bravest thing is to stop when things no longer bring peace. She did not name anyone, but it was obvious that she was confirming that the decision to end the relationship was the right one for them both. In brief conversation, Keith was asked which song best captures his current feelings. He simply responded, "Any song about learning to let go." After all of that, the audience realized that the silence during this time was not an avoidance, but rather a necessary part of the process of self-reflection. Keith spends a lot of time in the studio, and the majority of his new songs have themes of change and forgiveness. His lyrics include details about losing something important to his family. The story of Keith and Nicole is no longer about two stars, but rather a lesson about love choices and how people deal with loss. Behind the lights, they are just people who are rediscovering themselves after years of being lost. Keith had said everything that needed to be said, And what was left was how he moved on after everything. Please share your ideas in the comments section if you can relate to that journey. Remember to like, and subscribe to the channel to follow more true stories and many undiscovered hidden corners in the entertainment industry.